In 1922, the estate of Bram Stoker, the author of the original Dracula novel, took on Prana Film, which made an unlicensed adaptation of the book. Film producer Albin Grau, talked about in the previous video, wanted to do an expressionistic retelling of the story of Dracula, but the estate of Bram Stoker, spearheaded by his widow Florence Stoker, would not sell him the rights. Though the book already was in the public domain in the United States due to an error in the copyright notice, the work would not lapse until 1962, 50 years after Bram Stoker's death. Undaunted, Grau pressed forward with the film and it started production in 1921. However, several changes were made in the movie in a bid to duck a copyright lawsuit. Most notably, the name of the movie was changed to Nosferatu. The main character's name was changed to Count Orlok, and the plot itself received many tweaks and modifications. Unfortunately for Grau, he wasn't exactly a legal scholar. Those changes weren't enough to avoid a lawsuit. Shortly after the film's debut in 1922, Bram Stoker's estate filed a suit claiming that there was infringement. Since early versions of the film still included the Dracula name, it was pretty easy to prove the derivative nature of the work. Grau was forced to declare bankruptcy personally and close Prana Film, making Nosferatu the company's only release. The punishment was pretty severe from Florence Stoker and the judge. They ordered that all copies of Nosferatu be destroyed. It seemed that the movie was destined to be erased from history, and it almost certainly would have been, if not for one piece of amazing fortune. All prints of the movie were destroyed, except one. One print found its way to the United States. Since Dracula was already in the public domain there was no way to have a United States court order its destruction. It is from that copy that every copy of the film exists today. So now it's time. Give yourselves a round of applause, America. Freedom and Dracula. The film slowly began to gather an audience in the United States, and by the 1960s had earned a place as a horror classic. By then, Dracula was in the public domain worldwide, and Nosferatu could be shown freely. More importantly, though, Nosferatu is the first vampire film that is known to have survived into the modern age. As such, it set many templates and rules for the films that would follow, including changing some vampire lore forever. Though it's clear Nosferatu is a close retelling of Dracula with different character names, the movie made many changes to the story, some for budgetary reasons, but most for copyright reasons. The biggest change was at the ending of the movie. In Nosferatu, Count Orlok is burned up by sunlight. However, in Bram Stoker's version, sunlight was harmless to vampires. It just weakened them slightly. Now, if you're like me and you've consumed any vampire media at all, this idea of vampires being killed by sunlight has been used over and over again in various movies, including many carrying an actual Dracula name. This theme had become so common that in 1992, a film by Francis Ford Coppola had to explain why Dracula could actually walk in the daylight. Another major difference is that a bite from Orlok doesn't actually just create a new vampire. Rather, Orlok merely killed his victims. This theme too would be adopted later by films, which would focus less on the curse element of vampirism, but often gave vampires instead a choice on whether or not a victim would live as a vampire or perish. Other changes, however, didn't catch on. For example, Orlok is a misshapen monster with fangs inside of his mouth, making him almost appear animal-like. This is a stark contrast to Bram Stoker's Dracula, who's kind of suave and sexy and an aristocratic womanizer. Anyway. This helped abandon the Van Helsing plot of a vampire hunter killing him, and left room for Ellen's story to fight back, eventually sacrificing herself to kill Orlok. Still, many of Nosferatu's changes went on to become canon for vampire movies, even though they went against the story that it was originally based upon. In the end, it's amazing how many elements of modern vampire lore come from not just an attempt to write a better vampire tale, but rather a failed attempt at avoiding a copyright infringement lawsuit. Without those changes, vampires might have never been thought to be vulnerable to sunlight or been able to kill their victims. Vampire lore would have been very different without Nosferatu. However, the biggest change might be that there would have been almost no vampire movies at all. After all, without Nosferatu proving the interest and potential profit from vampire movies, it's debatable whether Universal or Hammer Films would have even taken an interest in Dracula's name. Nosferatu kept the interest in vampires and Dracula alive until 1931, where Bela Lugosi first played the role for the original Universal Pictures film. This helped ensure that we would have a steady flow of vampire movies to, mainline on. In the end, although it's the later Draculas that would become better known, it's likely that none of them would have ever done so if it hadn't been for this copyright-infringing film that managed to stay alive. Nosferatu literally almost rose from the ashes, and like a vampire, it still is around today. Make sure you like and subscribe and all that. I got bills. Thanks.